And we are live Thursday afternoon, Coffee with Levi.
So it's a good thing we're back inside.
Last week we did archery, from rabbinics to archery, now from archery to rabbinics.
And I'm really happy we're back inside because it's freezing outside.
It's freezing cold. It's freezing cold outside, that's correct.
So we're good.
That's right.
So I have no idea what we're talking about today. Would you like to?
So the topic is, how do rabbis stay happy? Not that being a rabbi is a depressing job, but I want to ask you about something specific actually, because it so happened to be this week you've done more than one funeral this week. It's not what you usually do. For people who think that you only do funerals, BINA is a learning center.
That's right.
But unfortunately, when you know people, that includes dealing with their tragedies as well and their sad times as well, and you have to help them through that, and that involves doing funerals as well and sad things. And of course, some people in the past that you've done, it's been very tragic, and you not only funerals, even sick people, people going through tough times in their life, whether it's in their marriage, with their children, etc. A lot of times they come to you and they come to rabbis for help. And I'm just wondering, how does somebody stay positive in the face of when you know a lot of suffering? And I think as a rabbi, and correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps it's slightly different than a professional in that, of course, professionals, I imagine, also care about their patients. Of course, I'm not doubting that. But at the end of the day, it's a profession, and therefore it's done in a professional way, and there's some sort of distance that's kept. People come to a rabbi for the personal touch. They come to you not because you're actually not a professional. I mean, you refer people to
They come for empathy.
Yeah, they come for care and feelings. And that sort of, I imagine, would demand you to get emotionally involved somewhat. How do you? Because you're quite an upbeat, positive person. At least it seems to me that way. So how do you do that? Interested to know.
So that's a good question, actually. So let me ask you a question. Let's do it the Jewish way this time. Question. Jews answer a question with a question. So your question you started off with was, how do rabbis stay happy? Define happiness for me.
Oh, that's a deep question.
So what is happiness?
Well, yeah, I'm sure it means many deep things in a sort of a sense of fulfillment and focus and not to be dragged down by the troubles of life. But just not even a very simple level, to sort of have an upbeat, sort of positive attitude to life.
So I'll tell you a little story that I once heard from my grandfather, who, as you know, was also Rabbi Eloy from South Africa, was also a very, very positive, very happy person who saw much more than I see. He was involved in many, many, many people's lives, in the ups and also the downs. And he once told me a story, not in response to this question, just generally he's told me stories. So he told me a story that one time there was a Jew on Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is the saddest day of the Jewish calendar. Today we commemorate the destruction of both temples and so on.
Yeah.
And it's a day we mourn, right? So he said this guy was quite happy. He was like upbeat on Tisha B'Av. So someone said to him, Rabbi, as I say, excuse me, isn't today a day of mourning? How come you besimcha? How come you're happy?
Yeah.
So he said, this Jew answered, he said, look, to be mis'abel al Yerushalayim, which means to mourn for Jerusalem and the destruction, is a mitzvah. It's in the code of Jewish law.
Yeah.
And I was trained that every mitzvah you have to do with joy.
That's right.
So there's a very deep idea behind that. In other words, like this. Happiness has different forms. Happiness is often expressed with dancing and singing and just being happy. But at the end of the day, that's not what happiness is. Happiness is about inner fulfillment. It's about doing Hashem's will. It's about helping people. It's about living with values. Having an inner contentment about doing good. Right? Now I think as a...
Purpose. Living with purpose.
Purpose, exactly. Purpose breeds inner happiness, right?
Yeah.
I think, so there's no question that when you're involved with families and people, you see a lot of suffering. And you're right, it's not so, that concept of professional distance doesn't always apply because you have a relationship with people and you care for people, you try to care for people at least. And you see a lot of stuff, and that it does get you. So yeah, I mean, look, there's the regular things that you have to do. You have to take a rest. You have to take care of yourself, and all of that. And that's all true, by the way. And that's important. I'm not dismissing that. That's actually important because you can't just keep going with that because it will get you down after a while. However, I think overall, it's about the commitment to purpose. So that purpose can mean. I mean, just interestingly enough, I had a very interesting week. I spent Sunday doing a wedding.
That's right.
That's right. Which I was quite involved in. In other words, it was far away and I spent a lot of time there. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
And then the rest of the week with other stuff, unfortunately. But I think it's all boils down to one thing: purpose. Helping people, inspiring people, hopefully, if we're successful, lifting people up, helping them, strengthening people, and in a way that's a tremendous source of inner fulfillment,
Right.
and real happiness, I think.
Mm.
We hope and pray that we have more of open happiness events than painful events, but at the end of the day, painful events are part of the cycle of life. You can't avoid them.
Right.
They are part of living. They are part of who we are. We just need to deal with them properly. But I think that's the answer to your question. I think it's about even mourning on Tisha B'Av can be done with simcha if it's seen as a purpose. Yeah. That's what he meant. He said if it's a mitzvah to do it, it was a mitzvah. Otherwise, there's a purpose in it. Yeah. Not just mourning, not just being sad. There's a purpose in it. So therefore, if there's a purpose in it, then somehow you can find happiness.
Okay, sounds good.
But as we said, you've got to also always, sometimes you have to inspire yourself by open happiness. That's why we have events where we celebrate.
Yeah.
Coming up soon to a Yontif, the Yontif of Shavuot, which is the time we commemorate becoming God's nation.
Yeah.
Time of real happiness, and we had Lag BaOmer last week. So we've got to. It's also important to connect to those moments properly because that's where you strengthen yourself and you fortify yourself.
Yeah. Brilliant. Have a wonderful Shabbos, everybody.
And hopefully, only happiness.
We'll be back here next week.